that. Here we go. Ready?
The 2-minute warning is when to take a time out. How many of you have heard of that term, time out? I've heard of it mostly used with children, and yet I'll tell you there are times when we as adults have to put ourselves in time out.
Yeah, and time out is that space that you give yourself to disengage from whatever's going on that we've already determined has gotten out of control. We've already went through this idea of expressing reactivity.
Right.
We went through this notion of how people tend to, they bring up the past, they scorecard, they tend to, certain people, certain topics, certain situations,
the
rage
triggers.
them. Okay? And so a timeout is when, okay, I've got all that happening.
Right.
I'm stressed out. I'm in a high-risk situation with a high-risk person, with a high-risk topic, and I need to take a break.
Yep. I hear my voice going up.
That's the first warning sign. You hear your voice spooling up, you're probably heading there.
I start name-calling or cursing.
Yeah, we have a lot of folks out there. I'm telling you, they never say one nasty word, but the second they start to get that emotion thing going, there they are. Boomity, 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 boom.
The nonverbals, the facial expression, or the body language become threatening.
Most of the men I work with are really guilty of this. They have this facial expression that's so gruff and so coarse and so abrasive, and they don't even understand they're doing it. And often I ask them to, look, find a mirror, look in the mirror, see what it looks like.
When scorecarding takes over.
Yeah. And scorecarding for us is the selective act of bringing up the past for the purpose of reminding you when you failed, okay?
That's right. What about when it's just the wrong place, wrong time, wrong person?
And it does happen, doesn't it?
It sure does. When all of those, you, the topic, and the situation are happening, wrong place, wrong time, wrong person. I gotta remove something here, and it's me in this case. Bye. I'm leaving now.
And, you know, what we're referring to for this is that even though I've tried to ask you to identify high-risk people, high-risk topics, high-risk situations, when I've asked you to try to look ahead and see, for instance, if you're going through a nasty divorce when you have to go down to the courthouse and you see that's predicted, you know, you can come up with a game plan on what to do when I feel like I'm about to lose it. But, you know, sometimes it's just in your face. We had an incident not long ago with a man that went by his house. Now, he used the term his house because he was paying for it, responsible,
He
but
did.
part of the...
He lived there, and he was still paying for it, and his ex-wife lived in his house.
Right.
That's how he he described the situation.
So when he dropped by to drop off his child support check, the person meeting him at the door was someone that was in their underwear.
A guy. Yeah.
Male, who answered the door. And, of course, he jumped to the conclusion that it was a boyfriend, got into a fight, was arrested ultimately for anger management.
For battery.
And battery, right.
Yeah.
So going to the house you used to reside in, wrong place, wrong time, wrong person.
Right.
And as the story, if you will, panned out, the person at the front door was his partner's brother who he had never met.
Right. So it was his brother-in-law.
And he made the assumption
made a good first impression.
that it was the lover. and so now they're in the courthouse and he's been found guilty. And the judge asked him, what is he going to say about this? And he said, well, I didn't know it was his brother. And, of course, you know, that's not really what the judge wants to hear. You know, remorse and regret was not something
I realized that I was really out of control and that maybe it's in my better interest not to go over by the house. That's not what he heard, though.
And then finally, the last thing we'd like you to think about when to take a time out. Look, when you've lost solutions focus and you no longer can focus on the solution, but you're focusing on everything else, who caused the problem, why it's not my fault, blaming, minimizing, all that stuff, then we've lost it. And it's time to take a time out. We got one last thing to do today before we call it a day, and that is we had a point to ponder here we wanted to discuss. We're going to bring it up, and it's